Hi, I'm Vicki Westling here with City Speaks. City Speaks is a show that's brought to you by Mayor Wilfred Rosas for you, the residents and voters of the city of Dunkirk and the surrounding area. We're doing something different on City Speaks this month for the month of October. In October, we're going to show and highlight the candidates for our Chautauqua County offices of County Executive and District Attorney. We're going to show them throughout the entire month. We've also worked with Doc Hamels from Mayville, and we will be showing interviews that he has done as well with our candidates. So stay tuned, keep informed, know the candidates, and make sure you vote. And today, we're going to be meeting with our candidate for District Attorney, Jason Schmidt. Jason, I'm so happy to have you here. May I call you Jason?
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome. We're so happy to have you here. You know, the position of District Attorney is critical to the county. And so it's one of those things that we think about is for law enforcement, you know, how do you keep us safe? So I want you to start out by telling us a little bit about who you are and why you're running for this position of District Attorney.
Sure. First of all, I agree with you, but the District Attorney's Office is actually a critical component of law enforcement here in Chautauqua County. They work ideally in partnership with police, and when the police make an arrest, at some point their files are handed off to the District Attorney's Office, and it's the DA who is charged with the responsibility of getting conviction if there's sufficient evidence to support the charges. I am a criminal defense attorney and a former felony prosecutor here in Chautauqua County. I live and maintain my practice in Fredonia. I have been working the criminal justice system for the last 15 years. I've worked on both sides. As a felony prosecutor here in the North County, I prosecuted felonies out of Dunkirk, out of Fredonia, out of generally the entire North End. I also handled the drug task force with the Sheriff's Department and their prosecutions as well. As a criminal defense attorney, I have a vast practice. It's mostly felony representation. I've handled very serious, violent felonies, murder trials, and so forth, both in the state and the federal courts. So I feel like I have a vast experience, and I've also know the system pretty well, the ins and the outs, and I've built a good practice based on that, and because of that, I feel that I'm a suitable candidate, actually the preferred candidate for the district attorney position. Okay,
now we've had the district attorney position has taken some heat this year. We're aware of that. Tell me a little bit, what is your vision? What are your goals? If you were elected for this position, what do you want to achieve?
Well, listen, to tell you what I want to achieve, I need to tell you where we're at. I mean, we always have to have a starting point in order to determine, where we're going. So here's where we're at. The police make about 1,000 felony arrests each year. So when people get arrested, when people do bad things and they get arrested, obviously they can be arrested for all kinds of violations. And some of those are low-level violations. They don't even rise to that of a crime. But as we move up the ladder of seriousness, we get into misdemeanors, and then we get into felonies. And felonies are our most serious crimes. They consist of, the worst end of it, obviously, murder cases, but you've got serious assaults, you've got robberies, you've got burglaries where people have broken into people's homes, sexual assaults, all types of cases. Now, with respect to those cases, there's about 1,000 felony arrests each year by our various police agencies, including the City of Dunkirk Police Department. Now, where we're at is that as of 2019, only 17.4% of those felony arrests resulted in felony convictions. The others were either reduced or dismissed. And the person responsible for that is the district attorney's office. That's the 2019 record. Going back 2018, 2017, the numbers were pretty bad too, 21.6% in 2017 and 18, and then 25.7% in 2016. That's not a good record, and that's what I stand on. My platform is one that's dedicated to putting victims first, to working hand in hand with police in order to achieve a much better result here. So what we know, I think, from reading the newspapers is that our district attorney's office is struggling in the courtroom and not doing well in the courtroom. Well, I've achieved a lot of success in the courtroom. I've built a very successful practice winning in the courtroom against this district attorney's office. And that's what I want to do, is bring my record of success to the DA's office in order to win cases. And besides for that, my point is that we're not prosecuting cases to the extent that we should be here. Now again, I'm not talking about the low-level stuff. I'm talking about the serious crimes that affect our safety here in the community. And when you don't hold people accountable when they hurt other people, the end result of that is that there's no deterrence effect. And it's also, it's hurtful to the victims who get no justice. It's hurtful to the police that risk their lives every day by making these arrests. And ultimately, it emboldens bad people to continue to do bad things.
So how would you change that? How would you turn that around?
Well, first of all, I know what I'm doing. I run trials, on a regular basis. I'm into my 4th trial this year, and this is during a COVID year when so much of law enforcement has been shut down. So I'm committed to running those trials myself, not handing them off to an assistant district attorney, but taking the most serious cases and being certain that I'm the person prosecuting those cases. Chautauqua County is still a relatively small community. We need a DA who is willing to just go into the courtroom and represent these victims in the courtroom and the police who make those arrests and fight those cases out.
So am I hearing then that you were thinking that it's the ADAs, the assistant district attorneys, who are handling most of these cases as opposed to the district attorney?
The district attorney has taken on some cases, and he doesn't have a winning record. But there's a lot of serious cases that he's passed off on to his assistants as well. I certainly know that my capabilities are such and my commitment is such that I feel that if I were to win election, I'm hired to represent the victims and the police here. I'm going to be in the courtroom fighting for their justice. That's very important to me. I really believe that ultimately is the number one goal of the job responsibility of the district attorney, and it's quite different in my philosophy as opposed to my opponent's philosophy. He does not have those same views. Okay,
now, so we talk about this, but that also, one of the other questions that has come up, we've seen this over this past year from the district attorney's office, is the budget, asking for more ADAs. Mm-hmm. How have you dealt with that, or how would you deal with that as far as support staff and ADAs?
Well, in my view, the current district attorney has identified a problem that doesn't exist. The current DA's budget has increased 34% over the last 4 years. And with that, the current DA has hired more attorneys, has hired additional staff. They have 2 vehicles. I have no understanding as to why they need that. But here's the thing. Their numbers have gone down. When you go back to the previous district attorney who's now County Court Judge David Foley, Mr. Foley's office was largely a part-time office. Their numbers were not that much greater than what the numbers are. I'm sorry, not that much more less than what the numbers are now. And their success rate was so much greater. I mean, they were prosecuting cases, exponentially more than they are now. So ultimately, it's about working hard, making do with the limited resources that are available to us. But the answer to your question is yes, we certainly have the capabilities and the manpower in the office to do much better than what we're doing now.
Okay. Now, you talk about working with the police, and of course there's this big movement now regarding police reform. Tell me, where do you stand with that?
Look, is there a national problem? I mean, I'm just like you. I watch the news. I see what's going on. I believe that there is a problem nationally. Do I believe there's a local problem? Honestly, I have to tell you I don't, and I come at this from a different viewpoint than a lot of other people because I'm a criminal defense attorney. I represent a lot of people that are arrested by police. They're very honest with me about what's going on here. Do I believe that we as a community might harbor, or individuals harbor biases? Sure. Do I believe it permeates into police work to the extent that there's police brutality? I haven't seen that. I haven't. I would be honest about it. But you know what I feel about this is that if somebody commits a crime, whether they're a police officer or a civilian, it's important that we pursue those crimes and that we prosecute those cases. And I'll tell you what I also believe very firmly, knowing the police, that they don't like that stuff either. The police are here to do the best job that they can do. They're not making $1 million a year. You know, they're working very hard. They put their lives on the line. They care about this community just as much as we do, and therefore they are not happy when the police, you know, when their colleagues do a bad job. And I think they're the biggest proponents of wanting to weed out bad apples. But do I see it? I don't see very many bad apples here, and I'm just being as honest as possible.
Tell me a little bit, we talk about the department and managing the department. How would you handle, do you have any experience with policy development? What would be some of your policies that you would want to make sure, if you're elected, that you would implement in the DA's office?
Well, here's the thing. You know, right now we're undergoing some changes externally, right? When we talk about policies, we're talking about laws outside that are affecting us, and the criminal justice system has undergone certain reforms in terms of bail when people are arrested, and also in terms of the discovery statutes, what disclosures have to be made to defense counsel by the district attorney's office in the early stages now of a prosecution. That's one set of concerns that the DA's office has. But the policies that I would implement are very internal to the office itself. We have good legislators that are out there, such as George Borrello, Andy Goodell, that are trying to deal with the newly enacted laws that took effect in 2020. But what can be done internally by the district attorney is to be creative with the resources available to him. So, for instance, what policies would I put into effect? I'd create trial teams in the office so that we could help each other to succeed in the courtroom. Right now, there's just a culture of losing that's just coming because there just hasn't been a lot of success in that office, and what that requires is good leadership to sit down with the ADAs there and to go through each case and to assist each other in making sure that when a case is brought forward, we put our best foot forward and that we can achieve victory in the courtroom. And that might mean, for instance, that I would take the laboring oar in preparing a direct examination of a DNA expert, or another ADA may assist with another witness, or in doing the direct examination of the victim. In other words, we work collaboratively as a team instead of just leaving it up to individual ADAs to handle their own cases. I think that we could work collaboratively much more than what I see going on, being on the other side when I'm taking these cases to trial. Another policy position that I would push out there is, I think that really what we need to be doing as a district as a DA's office is to have prosecutors present during the arraignment process. Right now, we're not present during the arraignment process. The public defender's office is present during that process, and that means that they're aware of cases well beforehand. The DA's office doesn't get files until much later after the local courts receive them, and then they send over the paperwork. And it gives prosecutors an opportunity to review cases, to push out plea offers earlier on, and to prepare themselves with any weaknesses that are in the case early on. Finally, another area that I think is very important is that we have a community here in Chautauqua County of retired professionals in law enforcement. They include forensic experts. They include retired prosecutors, retired detectives. I think that we could be utilizing them as a resource to help review cold cases and other types of cases that are out there. And it's actually something I spoke to Chief Bentley, John Bentley, at the Lakewood Police Department, and he runs the Chiefs Association, the Police Chiefs Association here in the county, and he had indicated to me that that's actually something that's going on in Erie County, and it seemed to be a very effective utilization of resources. So I think ultimately we just have to be creative here and think outside the box, and that's not what's occurring.
Okay, so if you're going to do that, if you're going to work with those individuals who are retired, you're going to bring in that talent, that experience, if you will, how would you budget for that? Would those be volunteers? Have you even thought about how you would put that together? Sure.
So obviously there's confidentiality issues, right? And there's budgetary issues. How do we handle all of this? Well, we could deputize them. We can pay them $1 a year. I'm talking about essentially using them on a volunteer basis, because I know from speaking with many of them that they would love to put their knowledge and experience to work on behalf of the community. I mean, there's so many people that are available to us right now that we're not utilizing.
Do you know how the current DA's office is staffed, how many ADAs we have?
I think offhand that there's 12 assistant district attorneys and the DA himself. There's a number of secretaries and assistants in the office, and then there's 2 investigators that are retired law enforcement that work in that office. Plus there's a victims advocate. So you've got a fairly large staff there.
Now, how do those with the DAs and the assistant DAs in working together with law enforcement? We have the sheriff's department, you have the state police, you have the various individual police departments. So there's a wide gamut there for our law enforcement. How does the DA work with that, and what has been your relationship in working with those various agencies?
Well, first, what generally happens in the office as it exists now is certain assistants are assigned to different courts. And some of those courts receive cases from different police agencies. Here in the city of Dunkirk, most of the cases are coming from arrests made by the Dunkirk City Police Department. But that's not to say that there aren't occasionally New York State police arrests or some other police agency that gets involved. But for the most part, you've got the City of Dunkirk Police Department that are making arrests. I was a big proponent for a long time of specialized prosecution teams, getting away from sort of geographical assignments and instead looking at the character of the case. For instance, making sure that we have a good domestic violence prosecutor on hand, making sure that we have a narcotics prosecutor on hand, because this way we can, instead of utilizing people as in a sense that they're a jack of all trades, but a master of none, they could become experts in their particular field. Myself, I've dealt with each of these police agencies. I mean, I have a great relationship with the Dunkirk Police Department. I handled their cases when I was a felony prosecutor. I've unfortunately had to put them on the stand as witnesses in suppression hearings and trials and so forth. And as a result of that relationship, the City of Dunkirk Police Department did endorse me in my candidacy for district attorney. They actually were the first, this is the first time that they have endorsed a DA candidate. And to not endorse the incumbent says, how they feel about what's going on now currently and how they feel about me.
Okay, so it sounds like that you at least have that support. Now, you've worked both sides. If you come into the DA's office, you would only be working the one side, the prosecution side.
Sure.
So how will that affect, maybe if you have a previous client?
Yeah, so obviously you have to deal with those potential conflicts of interest, and there's going to be a period where that occurs, but that happens quite a bit. We live in a relatively small community. One of our former district attorneys was James Subject. He was an excellent DA for many, many years before he retired, and he was a criminal defense attorney himself. Judge Foley was a prosecutor and then became, he was the district attorney and then became the county court judge. He had to insulate himself for a while there as well. So there is a process and a mechanism in place to make sure that the integrity of the system is intact during the changeover.
Okay. Now, the one question that I'm going to ask you that I won't ask your opponent simply because your opponent is not in this position is, what about your private practice?
You can't, you obviously cannot maintain a private practice if you're the district attorney. That's a full-time, gig. And I understand that. I mean, right now I have a very good private practice. I'm very comfortable with what I do. I'm doing this because I really believe in what I'm doing. If I'm elected, there goes that.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you believe in?
I believe in putting victims first. I honestly believe that that there's something going on here that is a huge public safety risk. Criminals, people that are harming other people are not being held accountable. I see it from both sides of this. And I just think that it's time to make a change here. And I also think that it has a trickle-down effect. You know, I think we've lost confidence in our criminal justice system. I hear from victims all the time that have lost confidence that people are going to be held accountable. I hear from police that have lost track of their cases because nothing has occurred in their cases and the cases are being pled down. You know, we can't continue this way because it has no deterrence effect in the county, and really it allows, you know, bad people to feel that they can literally get away with, you know, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but get away with murder.
Now, the other question is that we've had this jail reform that's going on where people are being released, this early release program. What are your feelings on that?
You know, honestly, none of this impacts me in that sense. What I believe is that those are policy or legislative decisions that are being made in Albany. Ultimately, you have to work within the system. There is a concern out there. Everyone, you know, police are concerned. You know, when somebody is arrested, typically, you know, they have to make bail before they're released out into the, you know, streets. And they're, you know, here we're in a system now where, except for some violent felony cases, they're essentially being held. You know, they're essentially being released and not held. The answer to that is real easy for me. We need to get convictions, because once we get convictions, they're removed from the street and they go to prison. Simple as that. Okay.
All right. Look at the camera. Tell the people, why should we vote for Jason Schmidt?
You need to vote for me because I have the experience and the successful record in order to achieve wins in the courtroom. Right now, what we have is a culture of losing in the district attorney's office. It's affecting the entire community. It's time for a change. It's overdue. I'm sick of it. I think you're sick of it. We read about it in the newspapers. We're seeing it. I see it every day when I'm in the courthouse. It's time for a change. That's why I'm asking for your vote.
Jason, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know that it's tough being on the hot seat all the time, but thank you so much. We really appreciate having you here and getting to know you a little bit.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank all of you for watching City Speaks. You can watch Jason throughout the month of October, as well as all the other candidates on Dunkirk Access and Dunkirk Spectrum 1301. Go to DunkirkAccess.com. Watch it on YouTube on your leisure. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you like. Send an email to cityspeaks@cityofdunkirk.com. Snail mail City Speaks 342 Central Avenue, Dunkirk 14048. We're here for you. This is your show, so thank you. Thank you for watching City Speaks.